morning, Geshe, and good evening, Katrina, and welcome to all participants this evening. As we know, everything that has a beginning also has an end. And today is our last teaching on this text for this year. We have indeed been very, very fortunate to have received such a wonderful teachings from Geshe, who is a recognized authority on Pramana. His deep knowledge of these texts has made it a lot more accessible to us. And his sheer joy of teaching it has just really filled my heart every evening as we sit and listen to his teaching. He has given us so much over the last 7 days. He really has poured his wisdom on all of us. And so let's show our appreciation for the teacher and the teaching by making offerings to him from our expansive hearts. Making offerings in this way is really a cause for us to receive teachings in the future, and is also very, very meritorious. And we're also grateful for Katrina for her fabulous job translating such difficult material. It really shows that she has not only skill, but also a lot of preparation to be able to deliver Geshe-la's teachings to us in such a clear way. So please also, if you are able to show gratitude and appreciation for her kindness as well, that would be awesome. And lastly, the Abbey has been part also of the causes and conditions that have brought this teaching, has made it a reality for all of us. And the Abbey functions only on generosity. So please consider supporting the Abbey as well. To make your offering, go to the Abbey's website, sravastiabbey.org, and right on the homepage, on the right-hand side on the top, you'll see a button that says donate. You could click on that and go to the donation page and fill out the information. And then on the comments box, if you can write how you would like your gift distributed, that will be very helpful. And please remember to do so before October 15th. So without more preamble, let's enjoy our last teaching with Geshe of this year, and let's do our prayers. Thank you.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one God to bliss, knower of the world, supreme God of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms, unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings, the holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, on land, sun, and moon, imagine imagined as a Buddha land and offer to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
and then journal Songudwa. Don't be a tamjun namiti, Lunda to be tamidos. Don't be Sanjum then they should the Yanni or Resongara. Don't be a tamjun namiti. Lunda to be tamidos, Lumbi church, to be church. No. Lumbi church, and then Karas can be Orashana. Should Yamsulang do sa? Then the Russian Yamsulang would Russian. Yamsulang said the Tangiora. And it talked with them, but they said, she Yamsulang, she Sorabla Sumbanashi, Sumbashindo, and it didn't she called Samutan, Yamsulang Langiora. Or the Betamjun Namit, Lunda, to Betamito, Osia, Tichi,
No. So here, as Vasu Bandhu says in his Abhidharma Kosha, as for the Dharma of the teacher, the teachings of the teacher, it is in these two aspects, that of the scriptures and that of the realizations. So when it comes to the Dharma, that which was taught by the Buddha, this Dharma can be divided into these two. The scriptures referring to those things that we need to practice. We need to have a knowledge of what it is that we should do in order to achieve that goal. So that is what is contained within the scriptures. And then though the Dharma of realizations is based upon that knowledge that we gain from the scriptures, actually putting that into practice, doing as it says, and thereby thinking about and meditating on those topics.
Oh, yeah, you can show that. Oh, can you? Chita Che ko Nyendusa, Sora Manu Tanga Busharwa Sierra. Or Che Nyendusa, Che Sumba Samatam, Kasha Chi Sanjay Sagilia, Yurgi Sanjako, Sama Tarvada Tamjakin Botobe Sagin, or the Duke of Uchi Sanjako, Tisamusangura, Sura Manu Tanga Busharwa Sierra, Sura Kazashi Yambrina, or Soso Yamsula. Tarvada Tamjakin Botobe Tablia, taking Yamsula, taking Yamsula, some or Tendeji Samusura, Sura Manu Tanga Busharwa.
So generally, when it comes to the Dharma, when we hear the Dharma, it needs to arise as personal instructions. We should recognize that the Dharma that we are hearing is creating the conditions, the causes and conditions that lead to the state of liberation and omniscience. So we should have this recognition of the Dharma as arising as personal instructions, that by which we are able to achieve those goals of liberation and omniscience.
Ini susu yang sulang tuba, cie tuba sama tanda cie. Ini rang de cie metuba sihina ya tanda lang do cie meniba sihina ya. Oh, dia rang de lang do cie meniba tusen du cie ne, pangba tende main ba cie. Oh, tanda nge ti yang sulang tuba menu te, mau bana neba du tende yang sulang tuba sihwa shosan, sihi insan ti tanda liya. Rang sosa tibacha saksan sigla ani sosa tibaba sani o tene ma bana ya tende jinjura sho samalam de ko mado rang nyam sulang matu rang ya umashina adi mare se chepon ala so tende bong mare so ba.
So individually, whatever it is that we are able to take up into practice, we should do as much of that as we are able to. But even though there might be things that we feel right now we aren't actually able to fully put into practice, we shouldn't have this thought, well, okay, I'm going to just give up on those. I can't do those. Because we should have a sort of thought that even if right now it's not something that we are fully able to actualize or accomplish, we should make a kind of aspiration, thinking, may I in the future might I be able to have the ability to realize this, to accomplish this? And in so doing, we should be accumulating merit and purifying our negativities, creating the conditions such that in the future, our aspiration, our kind of prayer to be able to actualize or realize that Dharma that we aren't yet able to can actually come about. We shouldn't just throw things away or abandon them thinking, well, I don't have the ability to do this.
Oh yeah, daily actually, drum ba kaya june sungutua. Oh, sungueshana. Sura tamna duchara chiko desh. Sura tamna duchara chiko desh. The mena any chema la lobja mambo che. Any chemone che and do that and shenda chiko. Say che kuba tedeshuna. In a nora desh. Ran sura tamje tamna du tambo tabachi. Nyamsulanja something. Hamagoa, take care of Reserva. Or take the Shay Yandune, Yamsulanja in some such a good mother. Shay Mambune, Shay Monet, and the ancient Dutch away and not a day from
So, as the Kadampa master Dromtenpa said, we need to have the scriptures arise as personal instructions for us. We need to view them all as things that are to be put into practice. So we shouldn't, if we don't have this kind of attitude, if we don't see all of the Dharma, all of the scriptures as being something that is for us to practice, when we may listen to a lot of teachings, but then when we go to actually practice Dharma, we're searching for something else. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? So here, if we are able to really recognize that all that we hear is something that is to be put into practice, their personal instructions, then it won't be the case that when we go to do Dharma, we're kind of like looking for something else, or we feel that something is missing.
or Takara computer and the combo the dash can give that is you by Nesungua, that you go in, but you said in the net, the dash, Lamga, the net, you would dash, La Biora, Longitambare. That's anything on there, come to do, Tangone, you and Sona. You said it again, she share a turbo theater about you with a mother. Nation doesn't want that you then and not at all. What we do, the members call this. Yeah.
So the teachings of the Buddha, which Vasubandhu has described as being these two aspects of the scriptures and the realizations, when we hear the scriptures, we should recognize that they are like directions for us, which way we should be going along a road. And so this is something that is that are instructions for how we should get somewhere. If we don't recognize that these are showing us the path, and then we try to go meditate on something, we'll be like, we won't know where we are going. So we should recognize that all of this is something that is for us to practice.
어디 이거 공부림 날 송도와 공부림 담에 날이야 가르송도 세나 공부림 담에 네 나라도 토마토니 퇴바다 삼바시에게 시럽 대송도라 아니 제마 공부래서 다음에 전에 삼부tam에 전에 공부래 송도라 어디 가서다 양 퇴바다 삼바네 중에 시럽지 또과 강인바 등이 송도 토삼제 시럽지 시바 하고 퇴바더니 아니 공부에서 양소란자를 송도라 등이 공부하는 중에 시럽지 공부자래서 토삼지도 현다지도 냠내시 현다지 여러 삼코레나 아니 따게 따주도 자고 규세도 때 땅원에 주도 현다지나 주도라니 세계도 개모셔야 내시데 어디나 심한도 친구들 송도
So then in the final of the stages of meditation, it's described, Kamala Shila describes how first we need to develop the kind of wisdom arisen from hearing and contemplation, thinking about those things. And then that which has arisen, the kind of wisdom that we have gained through hearing and contemplation, is then what we meditate on. So whatever wisdom then that we are cultivating in meditation is based upon that which we developed through hearing and contemplation. So if we are to, after we have heard teachings, sit down to meditate and think that we don't have the path that we're supposed to go on, like if there's a way that you are supposed to go, but you go off in a whole different direction, that would be laughable. So when we sit down to meditate, we should recognize that it is that from which we have cultivated wisdom from hearing and thinking that we are then meditating on.
Oh yeah, the occasion. The better long that of better to also. Oh, indeed. And to Sanjay Temple that says, that should be certainly my brother. She Sanjay Mason Shaggy Tenetera, longitude. Oh, tennis also longitude Tabasha, Kayan Yamlese, Togasha Dora. Oh, Tenekaso, no doubt of better meters. Kenjincheba Mashida Tubacheba Kona Ose. So Longi Tamba Zimbashe, Longi Tamba Tobashe, Sambaja, Shenyan Chebadra, Shengen, Longi Tamba Naranga Toba de Mil Sha, any Pajo de Guinea, now Ranga Shemba de Mil Washe, Shenyan Chebadra, the Marazu, the Church, the Colo Yungua, Sensitive Colo Tanda Karas, Ranga Shendas and Tobashe. This also children in Yamsola, social Shembeton that the mission done a pasha. Digging anti Shandana Shen, who check in a court was Koyada. Aga Kanga Tamse Shen and Shabazi Gomara. Daga Kanga Shebade, the mission that Pandanica do in a co Shabura, Sanjay, Sumbi Chelab Jodora. That's Chokos, Colos, and Tandakora.
No. So again, these two teachings, or the teachings of the Buddha, have these two types, or of these two aspects, that of the scriptures and then those of realizations. And so generally when we're talking about the various baskets or divisions of the teachings of the Buddha, this is the scriptural teachings. And then whatever we grasp from that, whatever we are able to apprehend based upon our hearing the scriptures and contemplating then what we know, we are able to use then in meditation, as well as being able to explain that to others. So it's based upon sort of learning, hearing from another, that we then develop our own knowledge based upon our experience of that. And then we are able to continue by explaining to another. So whatever we know, we are able to then pass along. And in this way, when we talk about turning the wheel of Dharma, it's going that way from someone who has heard from another, and then based upon their knowledge, knowledge is able to, in turn, explain that to another and benefit them with whatever knowledge they may have of the Buddha's teachings. So that's what we talk about with turning the wheel of Dharma.
Oh yeah, Oh, okay. That in a she so genuinely. Yamsolana, Sanjay Migawa Chupango, Kewachu Chujugi Korsona, Chujugi Laban damage. I have to join a social Kelada, Kishuda Tender Tombasonguara, Kedu Sanjay Sumbanation, Chujugi Laban Yamsolagiora. Oh, Kasoda. Then is some Yangiora, Sangajo, Great and Alex of a Tesla Tersanche. Tiba Pangora Kewatu Buddhist setting up to Biora, Miki or Chupa, Kewachu to be in Ya Ketulu and Social Pambas Mate. To great temper, love some young each other, to great temper, lava some shooting the lava, Tiam Sulagi order. Oh, Tinita Lashi, Pagwe Temper Shilla Soba Karina Chumamba Chumambe, Chumamba Kalsumbe, Shirab the Court Mambo, Sonora, Joanna Metaba Imba. Dharma Bayimba, Tarbatan Vesim by Shet, Ombe, Tabashan, Tito, and the Shirap Giriora, then Shirap Bilaba, and the Siriora, shooting the Laba, Shirap Bilaba, Ogeta Balapsum Sera, shooting the Laba, Shirap Bilaba, Tingajin Gilabas. Oh, Tezolia Yana and the Samrata, and Tito, the same joke, Chibidanko, Tingajin Gilaba, Lobiora. Longchu tension is Chinese. Long children tension la share. Nay, Tobe Dambatalia, Tina Sumbanation shooting the color Yamasha. Tina Sumbanation, the Shisha Julia, digesting the Shiram Kebasha. The Shiram Kebet and the Layani and the Jobasha. What does you gaga? Chabu, Telugato. The Russian Kindim Batune, Tagwaris, Church, Church, and then I saw that. From travel from the town to the other, okay, this is one.
So then we here are Dharma practitioners. We consider ourselves Dharma practitioners because we follow after the Buddha's teachings. We are following after the scriptures that the Buddha spoke, that the Buddha taught. And so that's how we begin. We encounter the teachings by following after those scriptures. There can't be a way to be a practitioner without being based on or following after the teachings that the Buddha gave. And so that's how we encounter the teachings, by hearing about what the Buddha taught about in the three baskets and regarding the three trainings in ethics and meditative stabilization and wisdom. And then in turn, based upon having heard those teachings and being able to think about them, we then in turn practice them. So we practice ethical conduct by learning about virtue and non-virtue and abandoning the 10 non-virtues, practicing virtuous conduct. And for those of you who have taken up vows, you understand what those vows are, and then you practice in accordance based upon the scriptures of the Buddha. So in the three baskets of the teachings, the Vinaya is describing the practice of ethical conduct, how it is that we should abandon non-virtues and instead be practicing ethical conduct. And based upon that, then we are able to develop in turn a practice of meditative a practice in the training in meditative concentration or stabilization, and the training in wisdom. So the teachings are what lead to the practice. So it's based upon hearing something, say, about the Four Noble Truths, that we then engage in the practice of wisdom. We train our wisdom. And here, the training in wisdom is very vast. All of these various topics, thinking about past and future lives, whether the self is permanent, whether there is liberation and and Omniscience, and so forth. This is all training in the practice of wisdom. So listening and hearing really goes with the kind of those two aspects of the Buddha's teaching, that of the scripture. You have to listen, you have to be based following after the scriptures by hearing them, and in turn understanding them. And based upon that, you can gain realizations by actually engaging in these various practices, by practicing ethical conduct and developing one's wisdom through study and thinking about things, and engage in as well the practice of meditative concentration. So here right now, while we are listening to the Dharma and I'm explaining it and so forth, we should recognize that this is the basis for then what is put into practice in terms of developing the teachings of realizations.
Chavalab Sembo, Sonam Lab Sembo, Sanjay Sopanansi, Lungi Chodan, Logbet Yambalia, Yamlation Gangatashi, and the Keva Sambure, something. Sosu Kevala, Chesu Yeranda, Kawakongura, no tea in the Nanju Dona Sungura, so Dabela. Keva Chavanam, Sosu Tabu, Tabada, Sunda Zembania Kadi, Sanjay Jigendo, come to church at the Yeka, what it all. Then say Sanjay any church from social tabala soba, Rabduchon, tea, daughter of the church, gave a chomamble and cargo in soda. Tandangarazo, Gileda, Sonam San, Kadulia, which is Jero Mato. Jiden Chagr of Samalia, Tindu Mato. Sakeba Joanna, social tabata, but the Sondans and Bania say. I need to bring a mission get out to the spec one body sombra. I'm going to carry. Tela kawa kongo ata. So oh, today, Tamba de Keba Sambuye Santa, Rangi Kavala Chefu Yera, Chene, and then I do the parent of social Yeri Chasha, the case of which Yamuchi said every year some social Telia, Kavala Chefu Yera, the Tico, the dog. Oh, oh, yeah, this is one. Yeah.
So those of us who are following after the Buddha's teachings, who have had the fortune to encounter these teachings encapsulated in the 3 baskets and the 3 trainings, we should recognize that this is a very fortunate situation. This is something which is extremely rare to have, and we should rejoice in the fact that we are able to have this opportunity to really study the teachings of the Buddha, to be able to learn about these various topics in order to be able to put them into practice. This is something which is extremely fortunate, and therefore we should recognize its rarity. This is not something that is easy to do, to come across a fortunate human rebirth with all of the kinds of freedoms and endowments, to have actually encountered the Buddha's teachings, and to be able to, for those of you who have taken ordination and continue to be able to practice and study and learn about this. This is showing that in the previous life, you must have accumulated a great deal of good karma to be able to have such a fortunate situation. And so we should recognize that and really take joy in that, rejoice in this opportunity that we have, and that we have encountered the Buddha's teachings, and have this chance to be able to study, to be able to listen to teachings and also discuss them and so forth with Dharma friends. This is a very rare opportunity, and thereby we should rejoice, and we should be doing that kind of rejoicing on a regular basis, day to day.
Oh, yeah, the question to Namsa, Shanda, Nebatange, Omara. Everything, that you say, and the culture, Namgala Tata, or tradition, Namsa, Heke Omara. So get Kawasha, the love symbol. The question of my debako, Lando in the Shebala Tennis will be or not. The social tablet, 나의 마트 민간 마통양세 다들 최명례시네 아니 거다 교화상부들의 랩샤세 자자네 미리 통하죠 통해야 될 텐데 그 요마를 숨겨라 오늘 그게 랩도요라 알아 좀 하도록 나의 마트 민간 마통야 kensummeti turi doar yose ngone kane ko hada mi ko bana soba kewa sambulingi de ese ina ngara de tanda namsa chechen gele dos mi ke da ngajo thoya de tele ke yo mare ese ki tungu me da yo de ese nawa mate mingan mate ya kensummeti turi doar yurusu do o di de ta tanda ma do chesa o ta karina nugi kendele tosam chero di de chini yamso la de ane saji je koba toba cha de che do ane langur je ne tembe chini ngi sam kuno se ta be samba so se o
So here we don't like say when we do a negative action see immediately the results of that and nor are we necessarily able to see that we aren't able to see the future results of the powerful kind of virtues that we are accumulating. So we don't really see or hear, for example, the higher rebirths as gods and so forth. But we shouldn't be doing Dharma with that kind of like limited motivation. We should be thinking beyond that. So going a little bit off with that, then we should set a good motivation for listening to these teachings, thinking that by practicing this Dharma that is in the two aspects, again, having encountering the scriptures and being able to develop realizations, one is doing that in order to be able to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we should set such a motivation for listening to the teachings.
Moya tanga do dimba shoda shibye kubju kubje imba suba chungba pangba chungba pangba se na karishi do sena kaji de chungba ge tyenchi chiwara de chungba me dos pale ja gara ona lule jan do chan jung de se teni keran sa ne shinina ne lu so ko ten de sa kondu la so ba te ki do as gara Kareshana Sivara, one Lule Jantera, Nation, Chanjumata Sivara. Lumi La Chapa Maton H. Seba Mana, and it tries to the Kyalang Marese, or Tama Yumajorba, tries to but the Seba Seb, this on the call it Kyalang Marese, or this on the Seba de Koe Judas Stal Chef Massa. Kenana, Lumi Chapa Maton, Lule Jan and the Chan. Lule jan de cha jo ata lu men chaba da kondo nga jelo so ba kyo ma to ye chis kora pena chagde kyo ma to ye chaba sibar ke kyu yimba sino skera la so ase ani lu chagbe du tam do to na to sa o jesu gara khaji la so ane ralo ka do lu de chagbe du tam do to na to sin to bara kera lu de Sabbe Judy said in Nambala to bed, Kita Lady, she said, Tenchene, many doja condona jealous of what she chigres, do some the chigres, but Sabbe do some to Tuna to say to Bar, then I'm to Kelly, a little town and Madene, condona jetato, some coronet to Madon. Did is and the Karaka version. To say Kellan Shin and Durs, do some the Nambagi Kellan Sarate, Kelly, you are this, Lule. Sem Geshe Sembi Kuchigres Kelan Yoresa. Kusam do Sanje Jan Debe Cherry. There has a Henji Jibe to say some do not Kelan Besher. Kelan Bayese. On a Kelan de Naramanguchi Nesum down Jumada Dedo Sem down Beja Kondunga Jealous of the Juba Mamus Kaswa Dikaresinasa. Monangari Juba. Kavadan Gelosina, Lu Chabbe, Jusamimba, Kavamares, Gogi Marese, Nieleta, Henji, and Cavers in Bacadua. Lu Chanjang, John Chanjang, and Assembly, Moya, Nielete, and the Alone, and then Lu Digi, Mishigi, Mioatic, Mishigi, Tagicha, and Nashi, Yiji Sheba, Chardal of Sobatezua, and then Lu Chassis, Tagicha, and Tadiki Marese. Mishi to Milan Tagi or Milan, Tagi Mishina Mara. Or Tinashi, 교만이 송거마도 실이 교장 님바드가 말해서 나 뒤부터 시고
So here then, going to the text, we are picking up on page 384. So here, this is beginning with the point of disposing of the objection that the consequences apply equally to us. So here, someone would, an opponent is arguing that the consequences of the previous statement would apply equally to the Buddhists. So here in the root text, it says, if you say that attachment also originates from the body, because we do not see attachment in one who is bodiless. So the opponent is trying to say here that, well, then attachment also originates from the body because we do not see attachment in one who is bodiless. So you don't see someone without a body having attachment. Thereby, you can say they are trying to say that attachment originates from the body. For example, you yourself assert that since we do not see a detached one take birth, attachment must be the cause for the arising of a subsequent samsaric existence. So here they're trying to throw this argument back by saying that a detached one doesn't take rebirth. And so thereby we can say that the attachment actually originates from their body. So here, the reply to that comes in the root verse of, we have accepted the assertion that the body is a condition. We have cleared away the idea that it is the substantial cause. So here, it's the response to this is that, well, if you prove just that the body is a cause of attachment, then you prove what is already proven, because the Buddhists have asserted that it is just a cause. So our body acts as like a basis or support, a mere cause for the arising of various afflictions. So it is in dependence upon having such a body that we give rise to anger and pride and jealousy and so forth. That has been accepted by the Buddhists, but they are not going to accept that it is the substantial cause or the special indispensable basis of the mind or of the afflictions, sorry. So here, this again in the response continues, this follows because we have already accepted the assertion that it is just a cooperative condition. The opponent comes back with, well, then this contradicts your previous refutation of the idea that the body is the cause of attachment. And so again, he responds by saying, we have not refuted the idea that the body is merely a cause of attachment, because we have cleared away the idea only that the body is the substantial cause or the special cooperative condition. So like in the same way that for a mental, a visual sense of consciousness to arise, it needs to have that visual sense power. That's the empowering condition. Or if it does not have that, then it will not arise. But this is not the kind of relationship that one can assert between the body and the afflictions, because we've cleared away the idea that it could act as the substantial cause of attachment and so forth.
Oh yeah, oh, that go nearly that I didn't ever say Kabaramato. Chili to some Shibaka, my ace in Sala. Oh, and in the shower. Oh, teacher. That ring the chairs from Dona running around the Jose. I can be back any so number Cherangani, Luta Casa, Tatambalia, Seba Mesa Kiolang marriages on the Seba Judy Sefa, and the new manager what you marry, Judy Bess and number of Sheba Nation. She's from the coast of Sigara, till about country. I can the Sheba Nashi can't you go us. Ring the chairs from Donani, Rani, Randu, Lana Jose. Can be Rani, Jim, Daba, Jawanachi Meba, La Neba Sheba Joatas. Sanjay Bess, and number Sanjay Bess, a Chaba Luji Chuyimba, teachers so, a dancing, Payanda Dokone, Lu Chagbe during the Bessera. Okay, now I don't know, but I know you Chagbe Tins and Demadoko, Nilede, Condonagella, so but the Sheba Nama combine Kevur Mados, Ludi Juan Chibuchan, give you a marwa. What you could kill Nama to Guara. Semblance of what is a Tumu might be ring there, Tumu might be yelling you are this sat joined to Chetuk Maris to Guara. Sat did any going as a messy gore, till nobody is in Guara. Oh, Tenicasher. Beyond that, the Colonel Lula Chagwa, Chagway, any Chagway to the Besher. Gede, Gela Chapon, get a hedge junction. Gede Luke Vala Chagwa Tongi, Shana Maton Vesher, Luke Wada, Luce, Gewada, Hedge, Docha Jungi, Nama Maimbe, Docha gave Drebu, Mino Shenase, Rodeta, Yanga Kolabdua, Kadila Burishana. Gede Luke Vala Chagwa Tongi, Luyona Chagwa Girase, Lu Mavala Chagwa gave Marwasura. Any Luke Wada, Hedge, Docha Jungese, Luke and Yamdo and Docha Jungumato, Tini, Luke Molia, Docha Condunga Jelasoba, Jungi or Marwasura. Jungi Nar Maimbe, and Docha gave Drebu, Mino Ose, Mode, Tenicasura. Lude Maimbe, Lude Docha gave Drebu, Mino Ocean, Atakaji Sula Gudua. On a Docha Jan Lude Drebu Imbara, Tini Henji to Juviaces, or the Tatiba to Siguna, yeah, mountain.
So here then, again, when the opponent is trying to say that this is refuting the idea, this that the body that it's contradicting, sorry, the previous refutation that the idea that the body is the cause of attachment. Again, it's not that they are refuting the idea that the body is a mere cause or merely a cause of attachment, because we have cleared away the idea only that the body is the substantial cause or the special cooperative condition. So basically, that is what has been eliminated, not that it can act as a mere cause. So then coming back to the root of verses, it says, the Lokayatas themselves will damage their own assertion by following the reasoning asserted by the Buddhists. So it follows that the Lokayatas themselves will damage their own assertion that there are no past or future lives, because they are following the Buddhist reasoning, proving that attachment is the cause of the body, and have set forth a correct example and asserted the body as the cause of attachment. So here, again, they are trying to prove, although they assert that there are no past and future lives, that the attachment is the cause of the body. But you have to have, in order, this body, it can only act as like a mere support. The elements and so forth cannot act as this kind of substantial cause. They have to come from a previous moment of consciousness, like say attachment and so forth. We've established that they have to have an uncommon substantial cause that is of a like type or a like kind in order to bring that about. So here, they're not able to then prove that the body, if they're trying to follow this reasoning, proving that attachment is the cause of the body, and have set forth a correct example and asserted the body as the cause of attachment. So they're basically not able to hold on to that position. And they continue then with if you say that because we see attachment at birth, it has originated simultaneously with birth. So the opponent is saying, because we do not see any other source of visible attachment in a body at birth, attachment has not arisen before, is simultaneous with the birth of the body. And so the body is not the result of attachment. So here they're trying to argue that, well, the body can't act as the cause of or the result of attachment. Our attachments can't act as the cause of the body because it's simultaneous with the body. So then we respond that, well, then it also follows that attachment is not the result of the body. So if you're trying to put that back at us, because the two are asserted to originate simultaneously. If that is asserted, it follows that the attachment immediately after birth is proven as coming from previous attachment because it arises from its corresponding cause. So here, you can't say that the body and attachment are acting as cause and result because they are simultaneous. This is not then leading to a causal relationship. And again, we have proven that attachment and so forth has to come from a corresponding cause.
Yeah, that matter. Yeah, don't do it. Seba chibu juina se. Marik bada seba lesson to me the Jusha badan galos, tan kadi seba chuda, tawakuda. Kya dadan delia seba de. Kenji number shegiwa, Q Kunjun Rapti, Kenji number shegiwara. Kenji number shegi, Kunjun shegiwara, Kunjun be Keju Shin and Kenji number shegi kapsu sigora. Seba chipu di Juin Bashegi to Asha. And Mari Bada Seba dan Le, Sumba to Meji Jusheva than gave to Asha. This was Toba Chigua. Apale Mishi Sebe Juin Majus. Mishishin, Mariba, Mishisha, Mariba Chigilo to Sambutan getting Neju and Mitumba Sambutan, Mariba Asigora, Kaya Mashin back to the Sigio Mara. Sigilo Sambutan, Mariba Sigora. Now the military no beach arena, or Mahama or Mashiva Sigora. Mashiva Sibico, no beach at the Muneta Hamagoni Sigora. There's a Mishishin, Mariba Susan. Curiosity chima kebe juya kabdilia tome marekba se kunju de bashi tome marekba de jurwa iban duji gile de jurwa ani sumbanam shise keba seba kubalemba subasibe le de kunju de barwa jazati ina ya tanda kabdile seba mado shegi omar ti mashibe juzen karesena mishishe marekba se curiosity chima kebe juya chida jure se Kenji number seven, Kaburo, no so much of it to say you had no so like Soya de Judas Sebade, Chabade, Timato Shanda, Leda, Maripa to Masheba, to say you had the matter where you remember much of it. Mrs. Sebe, Julian Machus, the Mataki Mares. Geba Seba Kuba Lemba the Tanya Jure de Ora. Tome Mariba should pensi Jusi one of you tend to Yana Chuna, pensi you pump and they would to see you do better. Tome Mariba never do that you which you receive around Mirwa. I didn't mind Palanga Lamotelia, Geba Seba the Kuba de, in Lemba you Seba the Tanya Jura Lelia, certainly lady and you were two gens and Dalia. Or this one that goes Seba de. Share the Shanda to my share the Sigura. Mishi Seba Mariba to the Kir Seba Chima gave a Juina, come the Juru so much to say you de Temata you mimbe Mariba led to the Temata with you my be any Majuba Shesura. What did you love
No. So, here then, continuing in the commentary, it says the opponent then continues by saying, well, if you assert that craving alone is the cause, then you contradict the explanation that the cause of suffering is threefold: ignorance, craving, and karma. So here the opponent is trying to say, well, if you're just explaining craving as being the cause, then that contradicts what you've previously asserted. So here, in terms of explaining the four aspects of the truth of origination, those being cause, the arising of all strong arising, and here condition. At the occasion of explaining condition, this is actually referring in particular to this craving and describing the kind of craving and the way that it acts as a proximate cause for taking rebirth. Or a approximate condition or a condition for taking rebirth. So here in the root verses, it says then nescience or ignorance also is a cause of samsaric existence. It is not expressed as the cause here. Craving is explained as the cause here because it incites the continuum of existences and because it is immediate. So in the commentary, then it continues by saying that nescience and ignorance are also a cause generating subsequent samsaric existences. So in this case, nescience or ignorance is referring to that wrong way of knowing. It's like a wrong thought when someone is mistaken, when they are perceiving something in error. This is what we are referring to with ignorance. And that is the first link of the 12 links of dependent origination leading to the generating of karmic formations and consciousness. And then finally, there are the three other causes of craving, grasping, and existence, the 8th, 9th, and 10th links. And so those encapsulate the truth of origination. But here so when it, in general, all three, the ignorance, karmic formations, as well as those other links are causes that lead to taking rebirth. But craving in particular, it is expressed here. The reason they are not explicitly expressed as the cause in this case is because they are not the immediate cause of subsequent samsaric existences. Thus, ignorance is not expressed as the cause here. So this is, when we look at the various types of causes, ignorance is like a long-term kind of propelling cause, whereas the craving, grasping, and existence are the ripening sort of causes, or the perfecting causes. There's sometimes different language. So when we're looking at this craving, it acts as a proximate cause. It is the principal sort of thing that awakens these predispositions or creates this new rebirth in samsara. And because it is that immediate expressed here, the reason craving is explained as the cause of subsequent samsaric existence is it because it incites the continuum of subsequent samsaric resistance as its own result and is the projecting cause that projects subsequent samsaric existence. And because it is the efficient cause that affects the immediate result, sorry, so it's the efficient cause here that creates that immediate result of a further rebirth. Yeah, la seconde. Disons.
Disons, Geshe Sebe Gyuni Machu Seba Nisheba Gyuni Pemba Cheseda Temata Lega Misa Ta Leda Marikwa Nibude Kamdilmo Sukura Sheva Marese Ko Yuri Bigu Penji Gyuri Madu Temada Bibji Bigu Marese Seba de Temada Bibji Kusoden Sheba Nishera O Temata Gyu Mibe Machu Geshe Geshe Sebe Gyuni Machu Seba Nisheba Gyuni Pemba Seba de Gyun Demata to go penji, Sotam, the Lella Sotam, Demata to penji, Ledelia, Co Sotam, or Resora. Gyuni penji that Demata Legame, Demata, John Guji, Tucson, the Division of Resora. Seba Nancy, Kyuyansi Chime, Gyurshebe, Jusen Yode, Kyurande Yansi Chime, Gyun, Gulshin, Pemba Shebe, Penji, Gyun Bese, Ibechina. Temata Ruber Seba Rubji Gyurimbe, and Seba Chibuti, Kenji number Sheba Kapsu, Seba the Sheba in Sungula. Yeah.
Oh. So, sorry, I read a little bit ahead. Here, this, at the occasion of describing the aspect of condition, a craving in particular is indicated because this is what in the case of taking further existence in samsara, karma or ignorance is not expressed here because it's not the immediate cause of a subsequent rebirth, and therefore it's not expressed as the cause here. But the reason craving is explained as the cause of a subsequent samsaric existence is because it incites the continuum of a subsequent samsaric existence as its own result, and is the projecting cause that projects the subsequent samsaric existence. And because it is the efficient result or efficient cause that affects the immediate result. So here it's being indicated primarily because it is that which projects and establishes, or it is this efficient cause that affects the immediate result of when you have craving and then grasping and existence. That's what's leading, or is the proximate or immediate kind of cause that leads to that result of further rebirth. No.
This one, oh yeah, that is Lady and Yashichima Pensic, Jews or Maresha, Seba de Yona, Le Nangi Yushera, Lady Kokam de Jews or the Mariko, Jews or the Mares. Seba Yona, Le Nangi Saba Yore, Le Lea Sultan, the Koyanshichima, de Chetu Dora. Seba de Mena, Le Yujan Seba Joa maybe say. Seba Mena, Le Yunako, Le de Jopan Yomarwa. Tachum Batazula, Nimasasha Bele Mabuyore, Yunako, Seba Medita Johan Yomara. Sabi Yunayako, Sudan Lula, so what came the Mena, you dig Marwa, or Dinashi, Narsasha Bele, the Mambuyore, Yunako, Seba de Meta, Le de Nibamini and they would get to Eggy. Seba Mesa, Lady Debu, Mingi or Marco, Chacho Batasolia. Le Mambuyor, this of the co. Seba Yona, Le Mena, Le Sagre, Le Sasha Batazulaco, Debu Me, Cuchi Resigora. Seba Mena, Le Gito, Seba Mena, Le Gionga Tobe Kesi, the Koya Pusums of a condition of protection manner, or Shagresigora. Down to Langamaru Shagresigor. Oh, yeah. Oh, then this. Dandige kunjo dembe number de to da juice le da nyamoni butige to make juice gre sera kunjo se to me meda ke teni juice gre se rabi se to me shu ta wo te se keje ki ju le da nyamo chi gre sera ni sebe seba de to me ti ke le la so ta me kenji to chi gre se ti she so o ti shi sa ta des.
So here then it continues in the root verse saying, nor is karma the cause, because even if there is karma, there will be no birth when craving is absent. So craving in this way is acting as a main kind of projecting cause that propels us into further rebirth, because if we still have this craving, it sort of fosters or nurtures those seeds of previously accumulated karmas and causes us to then take another rebirth, to ripen into that existence. So we could take the example, so here in the commentary it reads, nor is karma the principal cause of a subsequent samsaric existence, because if there is craving, then there automatically is karma. While if there is no craving, then even if there is that karma, there will be no birth into a subsequent samsaric existence. So in this case, it is our craving that acts to ripen our previous karmas into a subsequent rebirth. So for example, in Arhat, although they still have much previously accumulated karma, we've been accumulating karma infinitely, they won't have those seeds ripen into further existence because they don't have this condition of craving. So if you have like a seed, it has the potential to give rise to a sprout, but if it doesn't meet with the right conditions, the soil and water and so forth, it's not going to actually ever affect a sprout. And so in the same way, in Arhat, if they have gotten rid of that craving, then even though they still have much karma left, they don't have that which acts as a cause for sort of fostering or ripening those karmic, those previously accumulated karmas into further suffering. So this is continued because if there is no craving, even a royal existence earned by karma will be avoided. So even if you have accumulated the karma to be born as a king, you're not going to take that rebirth because there is no craving to ripen that. So here, this finishes then the section on the truth of origination, having these four aspects, the first of which is cause, referring to the fact that karma and the afflictions are the cause of suffering. And the second is the aspect of all arising, referring to the fact that karma and the afflictions give rise to all of the varieties of our suffering. And then there is the third aspect of strong arising. This gives rise strongly to our various types of suffering. And finally, there is the condition of craving. Craving acts as the most important condition for our continued suffering.
Oh, yeah. Tanga 좀 고개 때문에 남바시기 시작이하다. 동해대 고주 때문에 시작하다. 고개 때문에 고개를 상로타에 내다스는데 계주시기 시작도와. 그래서 고개 때문에 숨세. 고개 남바세. 시에 남바세. 꺄놈베 남바세. 네발주에 남바남니 람제 때문에 이제 어디다 Goba Shiva Janum Ninjun Shivara, Tasundin Goba Shivata Janum Basundika del Sheri Shivara, Sungiara. Never Joya Nambani, Lamdeji, Ninjis, Lamde de la Never Jibasira, to make our Mijunara, Tendo, to make the Lar Mijunga, Tendo Congo Benge, Go Shiki Lambre Shigara. Tell Yamdo Telaten Toby and Gobatia, and to make Lar Mendoga Suji Panga Pamba Rese, the Yamdoshe, Ninjun, Ninji, Sudan, Nebardo, Lar Mendoga Suji, Merson, the Lambda Sera. Take it, Teven Jebutosan go there, to get Lar Yangyatsu Mayoa Singing, Tawadi, Yamdosa, Chochi, the one is shaking in Sora. Oh, Gobe Namba Sudat, to name Gobe. Guapasoda, Yamo Panga Pangate, Tungin Yoma, Tungin Cupats, Tungin Gogben Gobese. And then she was the Numo Shiva, to make it to Numo the Shiva Sura. Ganamba Suda, pending or Juba, and then neg up the post of Pemba, young Yako, Lord Dot in this year, Mata, East Chimba. Tanda Pamba in a young Jay to me with any getting your Mata. Can then mind by Lord Meadow. Chawanya Pangi sa Kyando be number Osera. Never jo and number ne Lamdengi, never Jimbe number da Juba Chik is Yamdos, Juba Chicks, Yamdo shaking is one shaking Sera. Juba Chik is Chebe, come there, no so Masumba in Ose. Or Ninjung number de come the most Masumba. Yeah, this is good.
So here then we turn to the third of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of cessation. And this is divided into then the four aspects. So the first aspect is the aspect of cessation, and then the aspect of peace, and then the aspect of sublimity, and the aspect of definite emergence. So here that's going to be explained together with the aspect of definite removal on the truth of the path. So here at the point of the discussion of the path, there is it will discuss what is referred to in this translation as the aspect of definite removal, meaning that there is a path that leads to the definite removal of all faults, such that they will never arise again, such that it is it's a sort of you've reached a point where it is irreversible. So that there is such a path that can irreversibly eradicate all faults, all of our suffering. is discussed then at the point of the path. And so what is accomplished through that, the result that is irreversible, refers to this aspect of definite removal. And that will be discussed again together with the truth of the path. So the aspect of cessation is referring to the fact that there is a cessation of suffering, the removal, the eradication of our suffering is cessation. And then there is the aspect of peace. This cessation is the pacification of all of our afflictions. And then there is the aspect of sublimity, referring to there is a liberation that is beneficial and pleasurable. This is referring to being in the short term temporarily as well as in the long term of benefit. It's like a satiation or satisfaction. It's not like we have to keep going for more, but rather it has that aspect of being ultimately beneficial or satiating. And then again, this aspect of definite emergence, being that it is irreversible, will be discussed at the point of the truth of the path.
Oh yeah. Tanya bang go be number la ni sing go de to be la. Go de to be ta go ba se. Ani tele cho ba se. Ta bang go de to be ta go ba tele sa wa ge chi bi tan da se. Ani ta se ba tele ri be yan ta se se. Ta ta bo cha ye chi go. De ne ten do ma yi de se. Sa wa de te ba. De ne ten do ma yi de du la so si chi ro se de la. Sa je ni le je pong bu de so ra le da nyom bo wa ge. Lang go be kyo wa de se go ra. Oh, tiene tendo a mar, tu tendo negeci mare singora, tendo ta ko jun di ta guari stengeci mare se tiene tendo a mi. Giula che so se rose. Carsene te giude. Nyomo da, nyomo go anche sa belere doro. Che di nyomo de mero so yores, giude mero so yores. Giula che so se rose. Te giulia ni botom dengi che singe si ba inde, ni giud ni che de con you tell me, Sosana, and they will your master. Let a young be shaman, which and the Tantangazulan could be Pungu de Kyawa de Sigara. And then to tendo, Namian Dogi Meva, Kunche Meva, the tendo us, tendo nanga de my idea Sigara, and the tendo on my idea. Carson Koi Judelia, in it, Nibotom de Siva, Jula takes so Rosa. Oh, Tamebe Pumbutini Suji, Kun Gado Miro, Tendo Amaide, Rangi Julan Gage, Cake Tom Denda, Tungi Masawa, so CBS, Judelan Gage, Cake Sunju Mare, Tom Samba, Cake Tom Denda, Tungi Masawa, so CBD, Tungi Masawa, so CBS, Tadeva. Oh, did you so? Yeah.
So then the aspect of cessation is divided into two, setting forth the reason that proves the truth of cessation and disposing of objections. So first, setting forth the reason that proves the truth of cessation comes first in with the meaning of the word, referring to the words from the root text, and then a detailed investigation. So the meaning of the word comes in the root verse, where it says that suffering is not fixed, because it is possible that the causes stop, etc. So these contaminated, appropriated aggregates that we have taken up due to karma and the afflictions, they have a cause. We have identified this cause being our afflictions and the karma that we accumulate due to the force of those afflictions. And since it is possible to remove that cause, it's something that has an antidote. It is possible to oppose or eliminate that cause through the proper kind of an antidote, then it's possible to get rid of the result. So in the commentary, it says, that aggregation of suffering, these contaminated aggregates of an ordinary being, is not an eternal continuum fixed as unsuitable for cessation, because it is possible that the aggregation's own cause can cease through the stopping power of the contradictory condition and the incompletion of the appropriate conditions, etc. So because there is a proper antidote, there is a strong enough antidote that can act as a contradictory condition to the cause that leads to that, you can't argue that this is something which is fixed, that cannot be ceased or is not suitable for cessation.
Oh, yeah, this one. Yeah. No, that did it. Then you better touch it, but the need to Harba to be true. Harba de Ribe, no to be Ribe. Kamaji, Tom Denda Cheba, Yinase, Car Ragi Juridilla. Nobody Koragi Juridilla, Nushi Tom Denda Cheba China. Any Nimbo Nushi Tom Dega Nimbo Te Tomje, and Ragi Jundi Sebe, Rigi, Chakri Esura. Penase, Tarilla Nushi Tom De Tongas, Tamudilia, Nushi Tom De Sawati Yorba. Tonga, Tande Bulunji, Kunsha Baton, Nose. Or Tande Bulunji said, Tamushidachun and Kane, so the bush in Sigra, till Tande Bulunji Siba, so we can Kangusun,
No.
or Tilia, Nature, you are the good Sa, Mary Abushitana, Lord Salot in the town and Comer Shadura, or Tiso. Pena Tarilla, Nuja Tomde, Tawe Rexella, Nuja Tomde Tonga. Tang Tarik Debu, Sobolia, Chani, pushing Sincheba, to do Kunseba Tonshi, no say. Tamebe Pumbu de Yase, Tamebe Java, Lanu Jawangi, Langbe Pumbu de Sura, Jawan de Sura. Tamebe Pumbu de Ya, Guri, Nuji Tomde, Tongino, de Guri de Care, Numore, Numogi Java de Tanziria, or Consul Nuji Tomde Yode Sura. Tangzila Nuchi Tomde Tami to Shira Yungura. Teletani, Kondonga Jel Sobashenda to the Tangzingi Tauchen Yungu, dot to Biora. Or Shechavani over to Shuji, Tenji Yanda des Odi, Kasura, Tarva Trube, over to Shuji by Yanda des, and the Badu Chituna. Yeah.
So then it turns to a detailed investigation, and this is divided into two, the way of proving liberation and the way of proving omniscience. So here, this is going to be using this kind of objectively impelled reasoning in order to establish that liberation is possible. So here, it in the commentary continues by saying, there necessarily exists some type of elimination of one's own suffering continuum by the power of an antidote. So the suffering continuum being these kinds of, these aggregates that we have taken up due to karma and the afflictions. Since there is an antidote that is powerfully destructive of the type of cause that causes one's suffering. So this is described in an example here. For example, when we see a cause having the power to counteract a cold touch, we see that there is an elimination of the continuum of horripilation. So if we are really cold and we're getting goosebumps and we light a fire, or we get ourselves, we turn on our electric heat or whatever it may be, we see that when that cold goes away, so do the effects of that cold, like having goosebumps. And so in the same way, similarly, we see that an antidote is powerfully destructive of the type of cause that causes this aggregation of suffering of an ordinary being, these contaminated aggregates that are taken up due to the power of karma and afflictions. And this is a correct, objectively impelled reason. It's here we are able to see that there is an antidote, a powerful antidote that is able to counteract the very cause that leads us to take up these suffering aggregates, and that is our grasping at a self. And if we are able to recognize that that grasping at a self can be counteracted, powerfully counteracted, and completely counteracted by the wisdom realizing selflessness, then we can prove that there can be an end to the resultant suffering.
Oh, yeah. The Kabbalah some this one.
Oh, so its pervasion is proven by perceptual authority. Yeah.
No, they Kabbalah some to be raised, consider a study Kabbalah.
No.
Oh, Tamebe, they should Rangi, Rigi Sebe, Ryude, Chiji Juizilla Nochi Nimbo of the Yurechera. Juizilla Nochi Nimbo of the Yuna, and a could reduce every Cabade, and we soon do two chogresera, Kadesna, Penatare, Lia Nochi Nimbo of the Sabo de Yosa, Tarek Debu, Sobo, Ulunchis Tani, Kambu Sera, Pushi Oti, Segi, but the Kongusum to the other. Today, the Nochi Tom de Unity and Jebuti say you were doing some to Grace, cover Musum to Lachera. And social Jubanese, social Setat, and that's said the Cabada, social Susum says you are. When I touch it, Midagua in the Sheba in Beachesana, or touch ever, Midagua in a menace and Potea, and any social to Gora. Today, Lala Church, Puggy Lala Church, may you the toy base stock over. Churches the whole big to undo awesome. May you and a menasam cocktail, church to Sigora. Church, Sushi Sigora, Church the Tati Sigora. Or big Sushi night and to undo some. Pick to undo us or do church to a colia. The mayor was the auditor, may man to a young Marisata, may or some. You can't get it in a make of winning Russia. Or tell you a church Sigora. She said it and to Tati, you were two atelia. Churches. Yeah, go to check it to my Sunday school. Churches Drubane, Kango Nelula, Lover Supa Telase. Churches Drubatella, Kango Nelula, Lover Supa Telas, Penatan Zero and Zero, sometimes in Belode, Monet and then had the source of somebody and since Yonako Nelu Monet or Tiomarwa. The Kango Nelu Mone, but the Logwar Shuni, Chijilo, the Kosamu Tangi, Shibachi in Asigora, Kango Nelula, Logwar Shuba, Chijilo, the Mune, Nezukarina Tele, Dodin Zimbatele, Chijilo Sigora. Kango Nelula, Logwar Shuba, Tela, Te Rila Nuji, Tom de Yube Cabdese. Pena, Tuada Dembe Lala, Memer Zembe, Tondosinos. To use a big mayor, Maris, somebody, and Chinjura. Many about the Nezulia, Mayora. Meman to a young man. Lala Mayor Marisam, Tuadan de Bella, Memesam dinner, Chinjulores. Till a mayor bunch of Belot Nugra or Dinashi. Chojo Juba, Nelula, Lovarshu, Batella, Teresilla, Nuja, Tom de Ube, Captain, Pena Tuadan de Bellala, Memer Zimbe, Tondoshin also. Kansage dato Zembadia, Novenelula, Logwashuba Yenosa, Kansa Soso, Sanga Ramachi Yavan Zimbadi, Novenelu Monella Tedesi Yoma Resora, Novenelula Chijilo to Shuba, Nelu the Timber Shuba Resora, Kansage dato Zembadia, Novenelula, Logwashuba Yenosha, or Timber Chipuna.
No. So here then, to get back to this section that says its pervasion is proven by perceptual authority. So here we can prove using perception that when there is something like a cold, if we are having a cold sensation, there is an antidote that is powerfully able to contradict that, as in heat. And so if we bring heat around, we are going to get rid of that cold and the effects of that cold, like having goosebumps. And so if we can establish then in this case that this similarly, so we can see that an antidote is powerfully destructive of the type of cause that causes this aggregation of suffering of an ordinary being. So the suffering of an ordinary being is something that can be destroyed because there is a powerfully destructive type of the cause that causes this aggregation of suffering. So here, we can establish this in the same way based upon our own direct experience of knowing hot and cold, and that they can act as a powerful antidote. We can then see, we can directly perceive that there is a pervasion there. So then it turns next to the proof of the reason's relevance to the subject. So here there are the three modes of a syllogism. And so the first of those is that you need to have the presence of the subject, the presence of the reason in the subject, or the relevance of the reason to the subject. So if you are, say, trying to prove to someone that sound is impermanent, you could lay out the syllogism saying, well, the subject sound is impermanent because it is a product. And if you are able to establish that, yes, sound is a product, this is, it fulfills or it has a relevance, that reason has a relevance to the subject, you can then prove the kind of thesis that you are trying to prove. And so here there's the example of, like, if someone has a mistaken perception, thinking that there is no fire over there on a smoky pass, you can use this kind of reasoning. You can show that that there are wrong in their kind of reasoning. You would say, like, I'm going to just read this and then we'll get back to the exact syllogism. So it is necessarily the case that there exists an antidote that is powerfully destructive of the type of attitude, that it is a distorted attitude toward the actuality of entities. So for example, there is a mistaken superimposition that apprehends that there is no fire at a smoky pass. So you would say, like, well, the subject, like, thinking that there's this so if you say, like, the pass over there that has smoke doesn't like, there must not be fire, and then you'd lay out the reason, well, that there is actually smoke there, and we know that there's an invariable connection between smoke and fire. And so if you're seeing smoke there, you have to establish that that's then that there then is fire. So someone who is misperceiving, like, oh, there's no fire over there even though there's smoke, that doesn't accord with reality. And in the same way, we are grasping at this kind of an eye. We grasp at an eye, but that doesn't accord with reality. It's mistaken. We're actually holding something in an opposite way. And so similarly, the view that apprehends of self, of persons, is a distortion of the actual entities. So this person who's thinking that there's no smoke over there on the, or no fire on that smoky pass, if you lay out for them a kind of cause and result problem, they can see, they can refute that view such that they are then able to realize, well, oh, there must be fire there because there is smoke.
Oh, yeah. Tambu Kasa Tanzinki, Teninga some, Teninga Luki Yawadamiki Lesa, Teleteni Tungura, no Teleteni go to Grace. Tanzida Tungeni would be Tunde by the half portiona, that Tanzin and Nurse Tosona, any Tungi said you about the Shetu Grace and Biora, or Tintinema Mabushegua. They can't say Nasa. Kanshita don't tell Shebe, Kanshita don't tell us, Kanshita Tonga, Samsa, Narawa Tonga tell us, Kanshita don't tell a Nashita, Ningas, Nais, Shabashuk Shambu Grace, Nashita Shimbu. Shembe tell us, say you this. Can you rank it out the last 7 sessions? Tunga, Tantric 7 sessions. Nashita Shimbu, Shembe tell us, say good. Sebe Kanam Gibasis, Muta Onegura. Kanshita don't tell a name, Shebe Tembatar, Tansagi Tadu Zimbales, Tada Medreve Seba, Randogi, Demba Musum Jutublas, Na se rawa chi tudu, ane ta su che buchi, rawa, ke chimbuchi jimbati, ha koto budwa si wada. Tele dage se, tele tene, me, tewe, tewa le seba de, nga tewa kukude, nga kange me kure, tunge me kusam seba ingura, tewa la lakba tu seba ingure, tunge da tewa la lakba tu seba ingura. Tele dage tewa la seba ta, tele dage, dage tewa la seba sonda tewe chupchi, ane rangi lu ta, miwa da nawa la soba ta, ane chi, longzhu shu cha chi ru re sha la soba, tezu la seba ta, tewe tunjin tu zu tunda, la seba tu yung gure se ra. Tewe chupchi wang so ta se, chiru ji sengu so la, ta saya tunga te sa la soba, koko kari ne tezu la seba tu yung gure ra. Tele, taage tewa chube che to, taage kange seku sam, tewa de chubku sam de shuk shimbu yudu, di tanda bezu sigra, sempi samlu tangire, kane keje shekire, lune pasu drogo na do, kari che kone tabshi chikido hanga jo, di musum ki chubkurwa, nga sam sa nga jeke, ta nga medo ba se tewa chubku sam, di tanda liya kosum di laya chikido, chawalin jugudo wa, o di sungura. Taage tewe chubchi to kosum di, le ngomban duche ba ta se. Tele debe tema to ba ta bezo chebe ina so samba ne shikanga debe tende dube ngeba ke yo marwa men debe tanda de se to bezo chigiri de se to be ngeba ke yo marwa ten debe tende ma to men debe tende to de ne sem de se tunge ngura tele debe tema to ba ta men debe tende to be sorwa tunge tunge ngusum chembe to be shi tele tene tunge chewa du ngusum chembe to gu do ase o de yendo sende tunge da dangzi kyunde so ngusum chame tuglase sende dangzi jike nga sam nganje shuksam shike ane nga te ko yete ko me sam ko bezo shuksam cha de lamdo mando tunge ma bo nyawa de nga ngusum du tugwa sende dangzi le tane tunge yoma ta o de ngusum chame tugre so dara ngusum chame tugla chige seba le rinda rinda shima samsora ngobo topsugeta chigalamoge ene erwa chigesebala chigalamoge nga dewa goyo sam tunge da tena seba yora keba seba de kubalemba o tene ta meba chagi du samsa ya karile sebina ta te da tendu gi samsa le du gi samsa karine seba yongura seba de be shukshe du kap de ya lemba sigwara o tene seba da lemba la tene le la sueta tene kyo chima shile gyu tuni chima chi yo he yo bate no to gi ribe tu ku de te mo su gi tu tu ma ba no to gi ribe tu ku re so ra chige seba le ringde chima sam jo ra se ringde chima dunge gi sem gi gyu chima de ko tu je sam ma che je sam jo je tu je du re se sam jo ra no to gi seba gi tu la no bo koran gi to gi chawa che da de tendel ten tu tu re te sanje son do ase long la yichi che ko mare ro ene ngobu korange do da to ne mo ne ju to ne tu tu de so ra ngo do che ba ge to la sam ja re ring de shima tin yi ja tu ne shi tang ye de ja kyo chima yang ja ji tu ne kyo ji ne de ko du ne re do ra tu ne ge shi ching ge chi re do ra chime du ne ta kyo de ngobu tu shu ge che ba ge do ta tan da kar she go sa 당진 다 세대 동네 예부데 당진을 때는 세대 동네 용바데 가지고 무슨 또 그래서라 아 당진을 때는 세바께 세발을 때는 시갈아모야 저 심하게 내 저와지 두두게 바데 뭐도 되게 두고 그래서 보다 어디 보듯이 싶구나 나다메다
So, here, then one can establish that there is this kind of an antidote to the causes of our suffering. So when it continues on the top of 391, the opponent says, when we see that there is an antidote destructive of grasping at a self of persons, how does that prove that the cause of suffering can be destroyed? So here we need to realize then that this actually, by getting rid of this particular cause, this grasping at a self of persons, through developing the antidote, that this will lead to the destruction of suffering. And so Gyaltsab continues by saying, from the authority that ascertains that those two are respectively cause and result. And this is something that we are able to prove based upon our own direct experience. So Gyaltsab quotes this passage, and it will sort of be described in the commentary below, but it says, in someone ordinary, saying I will entail desire for the permanent, for they see a self. They will crave happiness since they desire the self, and the craving will hide the flaws in the self. So here we can see for ourselves that when we have this strong sense of an I and strong grasping at an I, some sort of like behold there to be some sort of autonomous or independent I, then that leads us to striving, to wanting, craving for various things. We desire for happiness. We want to get things that will make us happy, and we want to be able to avoid any kind of suffering, to sort of hide the flaws in that self, as it says here. And so it is due to then having this strong view of an I that then craving arises, and craving then leads us to engage in various acts of body, speech, and mind that in turn lead to our various kinds of sufferings. But we make effort. We say, have this strong sense of I. We crave for happiness. We crave to eliminate any kind of suffering. And we make effort at those things. We accumulate actions through making effort at that, but there's no certainty of actually being able to achieve those. So this shows that it is proven by perception that craving for non-separation from self is drawn by its own power from grasping at a self of persons. We have this grasping at a self, grasping at a sense of an I that comes from its own power, its previous homogeneous or like causes. It is proven by perceptual authority that from that arises craving for the pleasures of the self. We can see this, we can experience this. From that arises craving for the sense faculties and such externals as food and clothing, which accomplish the pleasures of the self. So out of that kind of craving and desire, we are wanting to get these various things. And from that, in order to accomplish the pleasures of the self, there arise mental formations tending toward karma of the three doors. When we have this strong grasping at an I, we then are driven by desire and craving to try to accomplish, to try to get, we make effort at these things and are accumulating karma. From that arise the suffering sensations of not obtaining desired objects and of obtaining undesired objects. So thus we have proven by perceptual authority that present suffering and self-grasping are cause and result. So this is something that we can, we experience this all of the time when we have this strong sort of grasping, and we can see that we encounter these suffering sensations of not being able to get what we want, or having to encounter things that we don't want. And so that is something that can be proven by our own experience. But if we wish to prove by objectively impelled inference that from death time grasping there is connection to a subsequent homogene, then the argument is as follows. Since we designate the subsequent homogene to which there is a connection as suffering, it is ascertained as by objectively impelled inference that the subsequent suffering is in a cause-result relation with previous grasping. So here, when it comes to then proving future rebirths, or taking future rebirths due to this kind of craving, that there is a connection with a subsequent homogene. This is something that has to be proved by objectively impelled inference. We can know from our, we shouldn't just have a sort of blind faith in the Buddha, but rather we need to rely upon our own proper reasonings to establish future rebirths. And so we designate that future connection as suffering because we have established through our own experience this cause and effect relationship with resultant, the cause of grasping and leading to resultant suffering.
Oh yeah, this one.
Yeah, Dixon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No.
This one?
Jason.
Oh yeah, that Georgina, did you transfer?
No.
Georgina.
Oh, so then if there are any questions, I guess it's time to take questions.
Oh yeah.
Questions here? Online? There's one question online.
There's one question for you, Katrina, in the answered box. Right. The question reads, on page 386, it says, Nescience and ignorance are also called. I understood nescience as another word for ignorance. Please help me understand why they are both listed here separately.
Okay. Let me find that in the... 타 속장 십자 굽추고 굴라
Yeah, she got to go. Yeah, can it?
자워디 마셰 시페 유인양 마제 러와
Oh yeah, Mississippi, yeah.
아니 치워디레 마셰 싱 마리파 체첸 카레체네 타니 니 저기오레스 미셰 싱 마리파 디 카가레베 타데레베 치
Oh yeah.
근데 치레
Yeah. The Mishiba Sura, Mariba, Mingichibarva, come Mishiba said, Kage Mashimba, Devachella Sigi, Mariba, the Kage, Mariba, Engagel Sigi Omare. Chinchilo to Samutange de la Mariba Sigara.
No.
Mari means a twin, Mari means a twin, so she says, Yora. Marik the Minza. Ah, Koda Dadiria. Mishiba Shuda. Da mebangwe nechude da rawa do tuba mebara tene we nechu da rawa do tuba mebare ina rawa do tuba jenge wara ni mishiba ko chinjulo do samlu ta dele mishiba se se wara
no
mishiba cham mare ka ge meshin ge chil se ge wara chinjulo do samlu ko jenge dele mishiba se wara mari ko ase we nechu de mari ko re ko chinjulo samlu ta de wara
no
O did Madoko, Chita Mashiba Samda Tilisiva Mada, Tome Mariba Sigra, Mishiba Sigra, Mongba Sigua, Kari Mongba Sigra, the Moynet la Moni, Shandachi, Chijilo to Pa, Moynet Mitumba Zimbatolia, Mongba Sigara. Mari means that Finiso she said. I could have Dripu Messena, Zavu Mess and Dripu Messena. Dripu Meva some the city of Mare, Mitumba Chiva Sigara. And you Dripu Messona, Chambu Mess, Chita Chambu Meva some the city of Mare, the Chamba Chiva, Chambu Mess. Oh, didn't I say that? This one, this is.
no So here, the term that's used in the root verse is this mishepa, which Roger has translated as nescience, which really just means not knowing. So here, that term in the Tibetan, mishepa, as opposed to marikpa, which is usually translated as ignorance, not knowing something could be just like a lack of knowledge in that you haven't heard about something or you just aren't aware of something. But this sense of ignorance is really getting at misperceiving something or perceiving it in a perverted way, grasping it in a way that doesn't actually accord with reality. And so it's not just a lack of knowledge, not just not knowing something, but it has a sense of actively misperceiving. So we grasp at some kind of an independent, unitary, permanent self, and that is a misperception that is doesn't accord with reality. So there are various terms like not knowing, ignorance, being deluded, and so forth, but it's something more than just like not being aware of something, but it's an active kind of like misperception of something. Sorry, the Dhamma, yeah. Does that get at that?
This one,
Yeah, yes.
this one.
Dixon.
Oh yeah, 제가 그 미시바스 마릭바스에 단단한 다밀 자기와라. 오늘 전에 다 나와도 주베 다 매버데 나와도 주베 다 매버데 마신 베세코 여버삼 되기와라. 제가 뭐 내주도 마신 베세데 도와. 네 마릭바스에 오늘 전에 다 나와도 주베 매버데 그디 마레네 마릭네 여버데 진데 도와. 자, 뒤에 신다 미시바다 마릭바 망고여라. Metaba in Bamashin Bazet, Taban Zisona, Mishibari, Maribari, Chinjilo to Zimbabwe. Very native Metabari, or Kuti, loss of Taban Zindiora, Sanko Mune, the Maribari, Mashibari, Sira, Chinjilo to Samta, Tisigba. Kikangal Jaguara, Lodo Kangal, Nudris and some Normango, Kanga Mishibari, Maribara. The Tome Mariba says on any. Less I choosing a tender tuning than a tango maripa cobra. China maripa mambo yagura, Tanzi maripa Janja Marwa, Medaba Marik Barwa, Chidangi Tanya Mambo or Kesera China, Keseti Maripa, Meshiba, Mambo Yagura, Nezu Meshiba, Mambo Yagura, Tezu Kangal Meshiba, Maripa Lapsura. One nature the Meshiba, Chinjulo to Sami. No nature the Maripa, Chinjulo to Ribetil Shiba. Yeah.
So here we're talking about this kind of ignorance in the context of selflessness and this active misperception of there being some kind of self that has some kind of autonomy or independence, but that doesn't accord with reality. That is a wrong perception. It is an active misperception. We see this kind of self as existing when it really, in fact, does not. And so that kind of ignorance is contradicts reality, or it is not in accordance with reality. And so we can talk about various different types of kind of wrong views when we misperceive something and are holding a wrong idea about it. That would be a case of ignorance. So it's not just with respect to selflessness. We can be ignorant with respect to impermanence, or with not knowing something in terms of wrong views, actively apprehending it in a wrong way. So again, when it comes to ignorance, it's not just a lack of knowledge, but an active kind of misperception. And it's not something that solely applies to selflessness, but it would be not knowing the actuality of something.
Oh yeah, that question down the way.
So are there other questions then?
Yes, I have one question. So on page 351, going back to right at the beginning of the Truth of Suffering, we're given the syllogism that the 5 appropriated aggregates are the truth of suffering because they are samsaric aggregates that are appropriated in samsara under the power of karma and defilements. And so even just to understand how the reason pertains to the subject, there's so much contained in that, so big and vast. I was wondering whether Geshe could explain how he would approach meditating on a syllogism like that.
Yeah. Sorry, it just takes me a minute to find it in the Tibetan. So, Shoktrang Shipya Dunju Dochik Re Dunyangi Demba ki thoma dila zawet sikti dungyang korwa chempung pos.
Yeah.
Ani di kapsu dewa nyerlengi pungpo ngabo chechen dungyang demba yinte lenyungi wangi korwa chengi pungpo yinbe chir. 아니 촉주 두비야 디테스 예보로와 레니기 왕이 코와 쟁이 풍보 임베치 디 두비야 칸데 삼로 탄고레스 촉주 디 두비야라
Yeah. Get one, this one. This one.
Di song low, di chiwarisha.
Oh, yeah. Nyelegi Pungu de Tawadera, to make Koacha Pungu Setera, Tawadera.
Lare.
Pungu Sede Yamobalakan language by Pungu de Sigara, another Sogoda, Semda, Toada, Dushita, Dujito, Nyelegi Pungu Sigua, Sache Nyelegi Pungu Sigreta, Savas Yamon Sigra. Nyomo go ang lesa and language of Pungutilla, Saje Yelengi Pungu Sigua. Tell a Koraya Sigara, Koraya Sigara. Can do Yelengi Pungu Children, Tunga in this, that to make them by India Sigara, and that Tunga India, to make them by India Sigara. Language, Shamas and language, one the Koa and the Pungu in Bitches. Kansa de let them young about Corgan de Casa de Rova. Then on the Koa change Pumbu in which they Pumbua, so good and sympathy. Or came to Lenny on the Koa change Pumbu in Beaches. Came to call Casa de Kibu de Garaz and the me, Lula de Yabate. Joanama Lesa. Nyamoge wange chagdaji nyamoge wange le kewasa balatene ni tanda kewasa buti ngora marigbe kunela nyamo kunela mike wachula soba le mike wasaba ina tandola soba kya nyamba de ngora sa ko choje tute nyele je pungu de ro saje nyele je pungu choje tunga de bayinde le nyu je wange ko chenji pungu ina le da nyamo ba wange and Kwa Korgan Kansa the Pumbu de Yesigora. Ada Nyomobe wange military, te Pumbu, to make Shidicia, Soboche, the Semche, that saw the Tungora. Leg in Jebel long check could do Soboche Core, and Miwan now chance of that Resala Soba, Tesula long church, Pumbuchi Kuviora, or Telesigora. Do I let this love? Yeah.
아니 디 곰 갸베 갑수 디스 칸드레 삼로 탄거레스.
네, 다다래. 대인들사 소소로와 소소 삼로 탄거라. 소소. 알아. 근데 소소 년에게 풍부대 삼거라. 소소. 소소. 아니 토아티 분야에 그와 아니 삼로 탄다. 근데 공조가 되라 소번 두지 풍부. 소소 풍부가 돼 삼로 탄거라 담보. 근데 소소 풍부데 겨와나마 나냐 benganzingi lo chike teletene na meson de de mare sadami kya se to go samne ane ko le kawasa yorwa shala chawa pambala soba so cheba pambala soba yawa chen tama chizula soba pambe le yorwa le ti wange ane tanda kyalane le ni wange ko senge narang ti wange ko de tanda mi Jignal Court, then they Pungu de Soda, Conde, to make the Shichiyosa, Nick to make the Bare Sambora. Jongamaya Samtangura, to make them but over the Pungu of the Quadava. That you can destroy Jongama, Nanzike, Gilea Usada. Oh, Yason Lieutenant Digment to some Uneda, Yasam Menagayana, Sochaba Pamba, Jennifer, Charlotte Sawapa, Kawachini, Vitrumne, Dewageko, Meleke, Timsuma de Sawapa, but the Meleke, Sibatama de Saya Toya Koyana Soba, Pone, Ida Nashi Saya Toya Mekang and Merse, Joanna Sibata Altanera. Sibe Longeuse, Tim de Desera, Name let in the Sani, and the Milu Lambare Sanje, Tisamutara. Social de let and you be shown to send a meet you at the Lambaresam, Gelatin and the meet to do young the years and Tisam Kudura. Quacodan de Samutangura, let the Numotion, Yumonga, Lake, Disativan, Kashayan, Kashida, Kashatura, Nara lay Agusa, the Tanda Miluto Varesam, me Lutoyati, Joaname led and Yumugi Shawas and Pavayas and Tis Sambura. This are.
Dixon. So here then, back on page 351, at this point of establishing, again, with this syllogism that is giving commentary to the verse that identifies suffering, being that suffering is the samsaric aggregates. So again, it's saying that the subject, the 5 appropriated aggregates, and the thesis are the truth of suffering because they are the samsaric aggregates that are appropriated in samsara under the power of karma and defilements. So thinking about these 5 contaminated appropriated aggregates, these this collection of our body and mind, all of our feelings and our form and so forth, were generated, this is being identified as samsara. This is the truth of suffering. So this person who cycles taking up these kinds of aggregates, we should recognize this kind of process. We should be thinking about how it is that the person cycles in samsara, and how it is that the aggregates that they appropriate are the truth of suffering. So we should be really thinking about it in terms of, well, right now I have this kind of human life, and this is something, the body that I have, the feelings that I have, the karmic formations, my consciousness and so forth, all of this, where did this come from? And we trace back sort of what are the causes that lead to taking rebirth. And it is first this grasping at an I, and then our various afflictions arise. And in the case of having a human rebirth like we do, we must have accomplished some kind of virtue in the past to be able to experience this kind of a life. So we should, when we're thinking about this kind of syllogism proving that suffering is the samsaric aggregates, we should relate this to our own experience, thinking about all of our own feelings, our own consciousness, our own discrimination, our form, and so forth. All of this must have come from a previous cause. And what was that cause? Well, in this case, we were propelled by a grasping at a self, but driven to do obviously some virtuous karma. We must have accumulated the kind of causes to have such a rebirth that we're fortunate enough to be able to encounter the Dharma and understand it. So we must have done things like abandoning the 10 non-virtues, abandoning harm and lying and killing and stealing and so forth. And so where we are in this rebirth, however, is again the basis of all of our future suffering. So looking at both how we got to this kind of situation, how we took up these aggregates and where they came from, in particular, human aggregates coming from the kind of causes of abandoning the 10 non-virtues and recognizing that those good causes lead to this situation. But this is the continuing basis of our suffering. So like it says, generosity brings wealth and ethics bring happiness. We should really be thinking about both what kind of causes led to our current rebirth and contemplating this cycle of samsara's suffering and how we get out of that, and particularly relating it to our own experience.
Rangi Pumbu de Sambiora, Rangi Sobuda, Senta, Sorada, Samutanda, Tetu Kanga Sigurno. Joaname led and Yamabaga Shamas, Kokadu Nemane, Sobu Kade Yuda, Kadu Jodo Yuda, Tendeke Yomara. Soso Ramach and Kenya Yomara. Joanamaga led and Yamaba Kadis Pavila, these Shamas is a Nika Judo and another Yuna. Karichido Yanda Tadiba and the Medayon, long cheche to soda tere shala sobata namila sobakari che mache tende ke yomara rala rawa ke midwa so se rawa che ne pungpu de lang bai ne dege wara rawa che ne sha che che ne dege wara tanda rawa yomara le da nyomo ba kari pha ye kawan du de kari che so so ke midwa tanda midem che te yore mi lo de che sa ni kari che tende ke yomara ti xiangwa che da la da nyomo be xiangwa che de sam 동해 시대 진계지에 samgora 님이 samgora 소소 소보이나 동해 시지가 개가나 줄어서 sembe samudanda 소소 동해 소도 강이 망고요 같이 가줄라이 봐 초라 이기 동해 되세 담에남나 루지소스다 소보 동해 매여이나 sembe 동해 samudanda 만든 동해 망고요 소소 samudanda 만든 초하게 된다 초하디도 지게 만든 동해 시장에 와요 와 and samutanda chik no dimadition to mabunyado sate ko kiwanga me samutanda da le da ti kombeshu gi ngora sa soso le rama menge che ta da me lure che to nyawa ida tendo le tendo ma kende te ora ina dia ko le nyi gi shama che resa soso rama che ne tendo ne te ge yo mara ye kana chika ka ri ndo soso ke me do rama me do long che che to ka ri ndo tende ke me do Raju Tati Shabadwa, Naza di Chonswa, the Sula Samuke Yomara, Zambuli Samati de Chagri Santa Sula Samu Yomara. Today the Chaswa. The Nazu Ramaki Medua, Nazu Raya, the Nazu di Meagurati. Could ledge Sa Chichidaki Madira, so Tandan Tali Sana said, Sendi, Tanzili Tene, to make your Musuki to Siga, or the Nazu. Meche ko chi chan dam meda su de de ngara zu ka ga nya ko ji ho so 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 ra ho ke me do wo di sam ko go ya ra sa che ni le je pung bu shwe chen ane to ne ten ba yin de to ne de shi din jing ge jing de ke wa nga me le yin je xiang wa jing be che di du nyo ye ten du so bu de yong ge ra de le ten ne ko tu so wa ka ri nyo ye ne te wo de so za ko dong ya so le ra wa me ba 너무 그 상황적인 바 또 가서래 상황적인 바 계속하고 달려 도서 사제님이 공부된 메타바다 상황적에 대나가 다 상황적에 다시 용신이 말해서 집다가 다 나시 라마가 그래 가려 다들 공부하는 때는 제일 내용보다 공부하고 거라데 콜레다 님뭐 계지 구하자 가르가리는데 tende menge ji doa tere ya ta rama che che wa yo ma ta tende tu sa ta ye me ta ba da tu nya ni de tu ne ne ta rama che ti ya me doa ta ma da so o chi na
No. So really, we need to contemplate this with respect to our own aggregates, our own contaminated aggregates that we have taken up and are under the control of karma and the affliction. So thinking about our own body and our own mind, our feelings, our way of thinking, our karma, these are all propelled under the control of our karma and afflictions. We don't have any autonomy. We don't get to choose what we say, how long we get to live, or where we take rebirth. But rather we are forced to take rebirth under the control of our karma and afflictions. And in that way, we are living in existence in which, because we have taken up these aggregates due to the control of karma and the afflictions, nothing is certain for us. If we had total freedom and autonomy, if we could just get whatever we wanted or have whatever we wanted, that might be different, but nothing is certain. We don't really have any total freedom because we are propelled by the previous karma that we have accumulated. Again, in this case, we have accumulated some virtuous karma to be able to have this kind of body right now. But even taking up these kinds of aggregates as a human, we should think about the defects. We should think about how we create all of these sufferings by our kind of both by having a body. This body acts as a basis for our suffering, but also through our way of thinking. Our improper way of thinking creates so much suffering that we experience. So like I quoted before, when we are, the sort of supreme among us experience more mental suffering, and those that are lower have more physical suffering, but we're all subject to all kinds of suffering because of the fact that we are subject to our karma and afflictions. It comes out of our previous habituation, and in that way we are it's out of our control. We're under the control of our karma and afflictions, and so we can't just get what we want or do what we want all of the time. Like for example, this pandemic is a very good example of that. No one wished for this to be occurring, but yet here it is. We have to experience this and we have to go through it. We are not able to do what we want, and this is something that we can directly establish. We're experiencing suffering, again, like what we were going through at the beginning of the Truth of Cessation. We can identify directly for ourselves that grasping strongly at a self then causes us to experience various sufferings. So this thinking about this in relation to ourselves, that we really don't have any kind of autonomy. We are under the power of our karma and afflictions, and this is why we are in this suffering situation. If it were the case that there were such an autonomy or such a sort of permanent self, that would be a different kind of situation. But we have proven through looking at the nature of the truth of suffering that it is our sense of self, or these aggregates, I should say, are both impermanent and in the nature of suffering, and thereby proving that there's no such sort of autonomous or independent self that controls them. So this in this way, contemplating in this way, we can recognize that these appropriated aggregates, these contaminated aggregates that we have taken up due to the force of karma and afflictions, are suffering in that they're under that power of those karma and afflictions.
This one.
Yeah, Dixon.
Oh yeah. Today Dharma dere ni ma Dharma dere.
No. Yes.
Ni ma chema dere.
Lare.
Oh, de nga tanda this some tanda ni ma chi ni ji yo some dere. Oh yeah. Then this at I. Oh, that you know Samaria. Ne de mbashon ko ne de sarna dia sanji chomden de mbashi ji ko ko sa ne ne ngara we tada tipe mambodo sa tichu tama de tesa jambuli ko na kanga chhe singe khabo de sendi jangjang ge benjo tada jangjang jma do chige meche tan ji chhe se de tungge kwambo shida da tende kapchili angara do keba sambode tembashi sanji chomden de Sumbata Gishana Shede, Sanjay Jigden, the Chumba said, she said, Chakabu Sujera. United Rigi, Tanda Tijin Rigi Church, Tembashi Korea, Koala Payagi, Tabi Namsan, Koala Tematunako, Te Tabshida, Koya Sawakari, but a Tinde Korea, Nadu Sambuta Kugachora, Pe Kavasambu in Samara, Tende Share, Kugara, Pekabu, Nikanazo, Yabuzi, and Nambino Lopo Yabunaki. Pecheso Yeran, Rale, Sanjay Temba Tangre, Sida Sanjay Temba Tangre, Sanjay Temba Kajetaina, Mizul Tangre, Temba Supan Kayomare, Temba de Pa Mil Kazesha to me, Mi Semble Tawatoya, Negab Dewata, Tadu Tewayo, Samutashena, or Dipendo Yorta, or Tisonda, Tanda Comba, Sutoba Dani, Can Muchin Sora, Kemo Choge, Shin the Sun, Condition Temba. Suggestion that Pendo Nantuna, Kazina, Sosoke, Khan came by the Milishetune, Davisan, Shoko, Suji Kolo Korgora, or teaching a mission that Pendo Yore. Marandu Tensan and Shichulu said, Mida Jamambuchi Supunji, Mimambu Yonani Jare Jare, so they some Tangdoa. Chulu the Mambu Yonani Suchambusana Kacho, Jare Yamima or sometimes some quota Mansachi. Adike Mara, Manuke Mara, Sanji Jumden, Mamboda, Suchen, the Kesumbi Mara, Miss Natana Sampongara, and then Arazo go number that she but the teachers, so they are some so they are matter. Tendeke Yomara, Missul Copena, Pember Mato, Kokari, Mingitan, Soseko Yomara, the inner. Should it a man or a man, I should have military. Ina da chede memang memang jadi mereka jual duduk ciara, personal ciara, fat duduk babas. When there's a lying word, the lad the 2,000 any younger Sidara. Man, the net 2,000 younger Sidara. Garazu Zambulinalia, Koshidi, Tandalia, Chess and Gesi, I was so tati. Jidengi, Chagdan, Mel Sweat and Damato, Chagdan Bene said it to the Chet and Damara. That did and that running younger Shamushidara. What in this or that in them, Nazuka Shamba, Buddha Gaya, Sandua. Kusu Chodan Tamjula chasing Jibber Chebayase. Told Dangi Kudenda, Chodan to Shiba in the Sandua Casilamba. Kusu Chodan Carset, chasing Jibber Chelegam. Oh, the Jare de Chiches. Jibba Tor, Shik Jabba in Nasido. Colo Condritigio Marisaba Congress Sunguda. Aletindres and get Kabura. Kabdicha and Zengure, Severe, Tugures and get Madayomara. Or Tindritigio Maris and get Sambu Ale Turba Sambi. Shiraya Burwa, gave us some writing, the number Kadina. She did not so similar, she did. Namgina Samutandalia. Namdo Damida that did too much with a kind of Pendosio. That and that. Oh, gosh. Pendation said, Jigalia, nigger Pemba, Smazik and Pemba, Pusu Pemba, so that Tembati, Milakaze Nako, Penton and Shet to me a war. Or Tildeco, Temba Rangi, Shala, Pendonaro Nase. And it identity share Kugato, give us some wings, some money, something a cow to the chase, chase with Rangers. Oh, yeah. No, they die, shed out. Yeah. Not our letter to share. Oh, yeah.
Oh. So here, I didn't realize that this was actually the last day. I thought we had a few more days together, but so here teaching from this place, Sarnath, where the Buddha first gave the teaching on the Four Noble Truths. I feel very fortunate to be able to give these teachings on the Four Noble Truths, and I think it is just a very fortunate situation, auspicious situation, that you are also able to receive these teachings. And it is really very rare to be a genuine practitioner of the Dharma or of religion. Many people are really only thinking about some kind of material gain or their own improvement. And so to have a genuine sort of thought about improving your mind, working with your mind, and practicing the Dharma, I would just like to say that I think it is a very rare kind of situation. And I feel that it is very fortunate that we should rejoice in having this opportunity to give these kinds of teachings and to continue the Dharma. So to have this chance, I rejoice in this, and we should recognize that the teachings are something that benefit us. We talk about carrying on the teachings, but really, if whatever we are able to understand is able to be used to pacify our own mind, and then what we know we can explain to others, I think that there's great benefit that comes about from that. So I would also encourage you all who are studying there, and I rejoice in all of the studying that you are doing, that however much you are able to, with your knowledge and understanding, benefit others with these teachings. There is a benefit to be had from these. And many people, when they think about like organized religion, they think about it's like people just come together to sort of fight. They make distinctions between various traditions and so forth, but that's really not what the Dharma is about. The Dharma is about bringing benefit. The Dharma is like medicine, and so we should treat it as such. We should see it as something that is for bringing benefit to others. So here we should be careful to not let this, as the saying goes, don't let the gods become demons. Don't let something that is pure and good become the source of something that is bad. We should recognize that even if others are to, in the case of like what I cited before, for example, to criticize the Buddha's teachings, or even if they were to come to Bodh Gaya and destroy statues and destroy the stupa and so forth, this is not something that we should feel angry at, but rather we should have patience. That doesn't do any harm to the teachings. So just to be able to listen to these teachings, again, is a very fortunate opportunity opportunity. I really rejoice in all of the attentiveness with which you've listened to these teachings. And I would say that, again, this is something that is so extremely beneficial. We talk about the Dharma as being this source of benefit. It's really something that we are able to pacify our minds, subdue our minds in this life, causing us benefit, and also creating benefit for the future. So please hold in mind whatever it is that you have learned, and I would also encourage you to spread that benefit with others by teaching. And again, I really thank you all for this opportunity. I really rejoice in how rare and precious it is. So thank you very much.
And we also want to say that for us, it's a very rare and precious opportunity too, to study with somebody of Geshe-la's qualities, and not just intellectual knowledge, but real practice and being a real model of somebody who embodies the Dharma. And we started out many years ago when first Geshe-la taught us the 400 stanzas. And then after that, we were wondering what to do. And Kyabje Ling Rinpoche said that we should ask Geshe-la to teach us Pramanavarttika, chapter 2. So we requested Geshe-la that. I went and requested, and he said, oh no, it's too difficult. And I said, but Kyabje Ling Rinpoche said. And so that was the convincing card. And thank goodness it was, because we are so appreciative of having access to these teachings. Just reading the text alone is very difficult to understand what's really going on. We really need the teachings. And he's explained it so clearly, and you've translated so nicely, Katrina. It's really enabled the connection, people to make a really good connection with Geshe-la, even though we're watching screens and we're not even in the same room, we're in the same mental room, put it that way, the same spiritual room. So we're very, very grateful for this whole opportunity. If you could translate that for Geshe-la.
아니 Geshe-la 다 코란소 양디 코컵 상보레스 삼기두 아니 투제나 슈기오레스 다 나마 콘소 세마남데 티아 슈두 키랑기 콘솔라 다 티스 칼레카포로와 타포레 이네 링 림포체기 콘솔라 디 로손 세고레 숭송 다 키랑 디 티아리 폐 가보 중성 펜톡 중성 칼레카포 유나양 다시 페자 치포 로네 다 하고 두기 말레스 다 케랑 문에 개발레스 아니 다 투체낭 디 개바 치포 말에 개춘상 숭요레스 다 투체낭 슈기요레스 다로 듄기 링라 탕보 다 시가파 치요레스 다
And so we're thinking, instead of waiting for a whole other year to continue with this text, perhaps in the springtime we can do this again and continue instead of waiting a whole year.
Chichana lo chik chatsan Google mare ta kirang tutsu yena chichana chika la mutune di chinang ronans ta no. So I'll look into that. So
Please.
in touch, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would really be so precious for us to be able to follow up on this teaching sooner, than waiting a whole year. And I think Ling Rinpoche would want it.
Di Ling Rinpoche gi debare segiores. Gyopo da mudune sunya di Ling Rinpoche gi debares. Bombare segiores.
Lasso.
So there are a few announcements. After we do the dedication, Katrina and Geshe will go off screen, and then there's just like 30 seconds of announcements. So if you can stay on for that.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losong's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends. The one who, due to his radiant wisdom of vast and profound knowledge, is esteemed amongst teachers of limitless scriptures, who takes care of his students in many skillful ways. May the great Geshe Yeshe Thabkhe have a long life. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy. By virtue of my merits, may no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms, and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and other delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are ill or injured quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, And may people think of benefiting each other for as long as this endures and as long as living beings remain. Until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world.
Thank you all and see you again.
See you again. Oh yeah. Thank you. Tujiche. Sama number 19. Sama. Geshe Sama Testele Tujiche. Aya. Now see you again. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bye.
Okay. So is everybody else still online? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that one of Geshe-la's students, Geshe Yeshe from Drepung, he is going to be teaching Chandakirti supplement from the middle way, beginning from October 24th to 30th. And we'll do it in the same way here over Zoom. So please, if you're interested, register for that. And then November 7th to 13th, there will be teaching on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book, Samsara, Nirvana, and Buddha Nature, which will be a very good review of what Geshe-la just taught us, because it has to do with the 16 aspects of the Four Truths. Also, it's important, please, when you send in donations, to specify if they're for Geshe-la or Katrina or the Abbey, so that we can make sure we get them where you want them to go. And also try to get them to us as soon as possible, at least by October 25th, if possible, because Chuni told me the 25th. Okay, excuse me. The 15th is, anyway, we'll talk about it later. So, yeah, please do that. Okay. Okay. My dear, you told me the 25th.